Senator John McCain, you know all about him. I'm just going to tell you just a little bit. Served in the U.S. Navy from 1954 to 1981. He was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Arizona in 1982 and the Senate in 1986. He was the Republican presidential candidate in 2008. He is now serving his 5th term in the Senate. And Myron Belkind over here is our 107th president of the National Press Club. Wow. He has had a 42-year career with the Associated Press, and he has covered many world leaders. Myron received his BA in 1961 from Ohio State University and an MS with high honors in '62 from Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, where he won a Pulitzer Traveling Fellowship. When he retired in 2004, Myron joined the National Press Club and was asked to assume leadership of the International Correspondence Committee. He worked to expand the club's international activities and also attract more members from the international media, international organizations, and diplomatic missions in Washington, D.C. Also, in that year, he began his second career as a professorial instructor at George Washington University. So, as far as the rest of it, I am going to leave this up to Mr. Myron Belkind, and you can tell by his impressive journalistic background that he's going to do a great job with Senator McCain and ask some very pertinent questions about the book. And then we will talk to you all later for the Q&A. So, gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Senator McCain, I'm truly honored to welcome you on this Veterans Day.
Thank you, Myron.
In my capacity, as Jan said, as the club's 107th president of the National Press Club.
At least you were president of something.
Right. My classmate at Columbia, Pat Buchanan, made a similar remark a few months ago. But I'm also honored to welcome you as a member of the National Press Club's American Legion Post 20. Your book published today, and I also want to acknowledge Mark Salter, your co-author and friend. Mark, can you just stand and be acknowledged for a moment?
Mark, there he is, right back
there. He is in the back. Senator McCain, your book published today, appropriately on Veterans Day, profiles 13 soldiers from 13 wars, from the Revolutionary War to Iraq. Among all of the millions who served in the military, how did you select those 13 to be the subjects representing each war? What criteria did you use? How did you do it?
Well, thank you, Myron, and could I just say thank you to the Press Club for hosting this event. And by the way, after I lost running for president, I slept like a baby. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. So I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm especially honored not only to have my co-author and really the hardest working of our partnership, Mark Salter, here. We've been together for many years, but also Mary Rhoads and her daughter Samantha are here, who we write about, her experience in the Gulf War. And Mary, I'm honored you're here, and thank you for your service to our country, especially on Mother's Day. Would you stand up, please? Stand up. Thank you, Mary. And you know, Myron, you've really put your finger on one of the hardest parts, because we tried to portray different values and virtues that different individuals have in different conflicts and different times, and to try to put them in the context to some degree in the conflict in which they fought. For example, Joseph Plumb Martin is our first subject. 15 years old, joined the Connecticut militia, got out and then went back in the Army, the Continental Army, nearly starved to death, wrote many years later a biography of his experiences. Remarkable. I mean, these soldiers went without eating for days. They were subject to all kinds of privations, much less going up against what at that time was the best professional army in the world, the British Army. And a couple of times things were so bad they almost mutinied. And then he wrote about it later on. And do you know he waited 30 years before he got a pension? So he was of his times. And our last one is Michael Monsoor, who was a SEAL, a Navy SEAL, highly trained, highly capable, highly motivated, to the point where he sacrificed his life to save the lives of his fellow SEAL members. The distance between those two is really quite remarkable. And of course, then we have Monica Lynn Brown, who was a medic in the Afghan conflict. And when you read her story of how she, not only her courage, but her capabilities. In our Civil War, 20% of the casualties of anybody who was wounded actually lived. Now, thanks to what we do now, 90% of those who are wounded are saved. And when you read of the training, the capabilities, the equipment that the medics carry on with them, they carry everything but a weapon. And an IED went off, she rushed in. And so one of the reasons why we talk about her is because it should really dispense with any arguments about whether women are capable of engaging in fighting in combat or not. I think the argument should be over. Young women today, I believe, are entirely capable to serve. So I guess I'm sorry for giving you a long answer, but that is one of the difficult parts, because you want to try to portray people in the context of their times and their particular virtues that they displayed, and in a way that and a couple of our people are scoundrels. I mean, some of these are not the most model citizens, to say the least, but at their moment in time, they performed, and that's really what we're trying to say here.
Thank you. Specifically, among the 13, as Senator McCain acknowledged a few minutes ago, we are truly honored to have with us today Sergeant Mary Rhoads, who served in the Persian Gulf as an Army reservist in the 14th Quartermaster Detachment from Western Pennsylvania. I know it might be hard to say this in front of her, but it might actually be easy. Why did you choose her to be the subject of the one soldier profiled from the Persian Gulf War?
Well, part of this context is that, we used to have very large standing army. And that standing army, which is all volunteers, gotten smaller and smaller. So we now rely enormously on our Guard and Reserve. And our Guard and Reserve today, well, years ago, I'll be honest with you, they were kind of especially the Guard, they were the kind of people that if there was a fire or a flood or something, they were called out and, direct traffic and that kind of thing. Today, our Guard and Reservists do everything that our regular military, Army, Marine, Air Force, and Navy do, and better in some respects. I think you would agree, Mary, whether it be flying C-130s around as our Guard does, our reservists who are trained and ready to go. Mary was a reservist. She heard the call, she answered the call, and of course saw a very tragic event, which frankly she thinks about every day, every single day. And yet here was an ordinary citizen, Pennsylvania, an ordinary life, and she went to a far-off land and cradled her dear friends after they were killed by a Scud attack. And so one of the things we're trying to point out is that we now have a lot of citizen soldiers who respond to the call. And to me, Mary epitomized that kind of part of our society. And by the way, our Vietnam veterans were not well treated when they came home. That's just a fact. The POWs were probably the only ones, as you recall, who were treated as heroes. I'm so pleased today to see all over America the honor that we bestow on our men and women who are serving. It's the most uplifting. In fact,